Restaurant managers, we are talking about the pre-shift and the post-shift today. And I like to say that the pre-shift and the post-shift can really be great bookends to running a great shift if done correctly. These are non-negotiables. And the reason we really believe in the pre-shift and post-shift is because they are great. They're part of the cadence of leadership that we've talked about before. We'll talk about again, and they can really help in a lot of areas where we feel like it's hard to keep up with when it comes to running a restaurant. So we are going to start with the post shift, or I'm sorry, the pre shift, and we're going to talk about the three reasons why they're important and how to run the right kind of pre shift. Because there are restaurants that run pre shifts, but they probably do it incorrectly. Maybe their pre-shift is everyone standing up and they just talk about what's 86th, or they talk about a couple of reservations and then they say, "All right, see you guys later." So, or maybe they're doing pre-shifts, one at a time or one per server. So, the restaurant manager has to say the same thing 5 times, and that can be a little bit draining. So, there is a right way and wrong way to do a pre-shift and a post-shift. So let's just talk about the right ways, right? Um, okay, we're going to start with the pre-shift. So there are three main reasons why we want to do a pre-shift, and if we do it correctly, how it can be really transformative. And there's also a little bonus one right here as well. So the first thing that I want to talk about with the pre-shift is setting the tone. Okay, the pre-shift is meant to be a tone setter, and the leader of the restaurant manager, has to set that tone. Okay, it can't. You don't want the server setting the tone. You don't want the host setting the tone, because they could all have their different areas, strengths, and weaknesses, and we don't want them to control a shift, right? We want the leaders to control the shift. And so the best way we can set the tone is to come at it with some energy, right? And positive energy, not negative energy. It needs to be positive. And I tell my new managers who haven't been don't have a lot of experience in leadership. I tell them that this is probably the most important part of the cadence of leadership, because this really can, when you set the tone, you are subconsciously telling your staff that you're in charge, that if there are any issues, come to me, that if I see any issues, that I'm empowered to correct you on the spot on those issues and things like that. So setting the tone is super important. Next, it prepares the team. So a good pre-shift will prepare the team by saying what is 86, by saying, who our VIPs are, how many reservations we have, how many servers we have on staff, if anyone's missing, how we're going to tackle that, who's going to cover what. Um, and if we can prepare the team, then they'll be set up for success in the next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours that they're working. Now, number three is really underutilized or undervalued, but this is continuing education. Pre-shift should be used 1000% as continuing education as well. Now, what do I mean by that? That means pop quizzes, or that means refreshing your staff on a certain policy that we have that might not be getting done 100%, right? Like maybe people are not on time. So this is a great time and area to remind staff that, hey, we need to not just be on time, but we actually need to be 5 minutes early, or whatever it is. Or, oh, hey, our uniform includes a belt. I noticed that some of you don't have a belt. Let's make sure and get that belt. And so this is a great time to refresh people on policies for continuing education, as well as pop quizzing them. And I would always, however many, if you have 4 people in your pre-shift or 5 people in your pre-shift, you want to ask each individual staff member a different question. So you might ask one, hey, sell me on our salmon dish. And you might ask the second server, hey, what are our 3 Pinot Noirs? And hey, server number 3, list, all of our beers from lightest to darkest, whatever it is. And the reason we want to do that is not necessarily to just put them on the spot, but it's also so that every everyone in the pre-shift can listen and hear and ingest all of these questions because maybe they didn't get asked it, but now they're getting educated on it again. And so this is a really underutilized part of a lot of restaurants pre-shifts. And if done right, you won't have as many servers asking simple questions or going to the manager or going to the cook about simple questions that they should have already known. And then the bonus piece of pre-shifts is if we can align the the restaurant staff with the why behind we do things, but with the why behind why we do things, then that just reinforces what our culture is. And so restaurants, like our restaurant group, we all have values, we all have a mission, we all have a vision, and that always gets lost in the shuffle. And not just in a restaurant, but in any business. We have those MVVs, mission, vision, values. But if we're not talking about it every single day, every single shift, then how do you expect anyone to memorize it, right? And so this is a big bonus for doing pre-shifts and doing it the right way. And if we can set this up to be a habit every single day, every single shift, and at the same time, every single shift, at 10:50 before in the morning before the lunch shift and at 3:50 every afternoon before the dinner shift, that is going to really set the tone. It's going to prepare the team. It's going to educate the team, and we're going to be aligned in our culture. If we make this a habit, this will make every restaurant manager's, every leader's job much easier. Now, let's quickly go over the post shift as well, because the post shift is just as important and for different reasons. So, how I'm defining a post shift is basically a one-on-one with every single employee before they're done for the day. So, when servers and bartenders, when they're ready for their checkout, they obviously usually have to go to a manager and they have to get checked out. That is the perfect time to conduct your post shift. Now, a post shift can literally be 5 seconds or it could be 5 minutes. It really just depends on what happened after that shift and how your certain staff member did. But the reason why we want these post shifts is because it's an area to provide immediate feedback to your staff. Like if you saw um, Jill, one of our servers, who wasn't very good at doing our steps of service. Maybe they missed something, or they always miss something at every single table they do. Sure, you want to correct them in the moment as much as you can, but this is a good way to reinforce that. Give that immediate feedback right after the shift, and say, "Hey, you know, let's continue to work on marking the table with steak knives for the steak. I noticed you missed that a lot. Um, you're doing a good job in these areas, but let's also make sure we improve on this." And that could be a 10-second conversation. It doesn't have not everything has to be take minutes. So now the second benefit here is it reinforces our standards, right? Like during the pre-shift, we talked about our standards. During the pre-shift, we talked about policies, or they got pop quiz with something. And let's just say one of your servers, who we talked about our culture of, we're guest first always, right? And then you notice that one of your servers did not get out of the way of a guest when they were trying to go to the bathroom, right? They made the guest walk around them. Well, this is a good time to make that example known to them so that they understand what we mean by guest first, right? This reinforces the standard, the post shift can. And lastly, this is a great time. The post shift is a great time for staff if they have an issue with something or anything or anyone. This is a great safe space for the staff. This is when the staff should know that they'll always get a one-on-one with you as the manager, and they should feel free. They should feel safe enough to go up to you as the manager and say, "Hey, I noticed that Jill did this or Jill did that, and I wasn't really comfortable with it because of XYZ. And then from there, you can obviously, you know, take whatever action that needs to be taken. But the main reason for this post shift is so that the staff feel like they have a safe place, a safe space to air out any grievances they might have after the shift, as opposed to letting it fester over a week or a few days or a few months, and all of a sudden they just quit because they felt like they never had that opportunity to talk to the manager. And then the bonus thing right here, it kind of goes with staff feeling like they have a safe space. But I've experienced in some restaurants that this can really nip gossip in the bud. I mean, if we're doing the post shift every single shift, and if we're doing it with every single employee, gossip will decrease, because we know in the restaurant industry, gossip is just, you know, it's just a thing, right? And so that gossip can really hurt your culture, and it can really be a headache for a lot of managers, because most of the time gossip is absolutely nothing, and all it does is take away energy. Well, if we're using this post shift correctly, you as a manager, you're gonna know a lot more about what's going on with your staff, and you're gonna be able to manage these situations a lot better. And your staff is gonna know that you're handling it because they see that you're talking to every single person throughout the week while you're there. So this is why a post shift cannot be overlooked, even though um, the pre shift might seem easier to do, but the post shift can be just as easy, as long as we know that before everyone checks out, we're going to sit down with them, whether it's for 5 seconds or a few minutes, depending on what's going on. So the pre shift and post shift, just in summary, are non-negotiables, I think, in the restaurant industry. If you want to run a great restaurant, um, you have to do these two things: the pre-shift and the post-shift. Now, one way you can really screw this up, if you run a perfect pre-shift and you run a perfect post-shift, but during the actual shift you did the opposite of what you were telling, then all of a sudden you're going to look like the kind of manager or the kind of leader who talks the talk but doesn't walk the walk, right? So you do not, as a manager, have the luxury of doing this well and then doing that well, but then punting on this part, on the actual shift. You have to make sure you're on your game as well during the shift, because you set a great tone and you're going to close the loop in a great way. And the only way it's going to be in a great way is if you take your laps, you support your team, you're visible, you're talking to the guest, you're talking to Expo, you're conducting the shift, you're orchestrating the shift, and your actions back up your words. So, and that's a whole other conversation for another video. But um, but yeah, so this is the post shift, or the pre shift and the post shift. If I missed anything, please let me know. But I think, these main points here are going to be the start of running a great shift.